Okay, so
Hi, good.
sure.
Did they worry you?
No, I want to start.
Recording.
Mm.
Recording or editing?
Mm-mm.
You want to record?
No. I have a meeting by 7:20.
Okay. So those ones that shirt we are dancing, also use those ones. Let's just make it very fine. But let's do some. Let's see everything before tomorrow morning.
Okay.
These just 15 seconds. This printing, which other one? That shoe box, shamara, and all those, and then any other one.
That's like 3 now. There was supposed to be 4. I've done 1. And the printing is second one. Then the packaging, that's the boxes. It's third one. Then the graphic designers and video editors something.
Okay. I do, so we can start. Okay. Don't worry, lock your door.
Alright. Okay, so we are starting right away. So I'm waiting for some more persons to join in so that we can proceed.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you come,
Sorry.
give him man. Tell him I said you should set up iBrand. You should use that iBrand Gmail.
Okay.
Log into that.
Okay, so starting right away. If you look at my screen, I was working on something. I was working on creating this glass reflection effect. So it's something we are going to work on later on. It's a very simple thing. You don't need to be bothered about it. Nevertheless, let's proceed. So today I want us to do some very amazing things. We'll do some very amazing things. Let's create some product manipulations. I was going through my Pinterest trying to do some research, which I think it's something that every creative person should do. It's something that is very, very important. It's important that before you start designing, you do your research. So I don't know what we can start with. Looking at these things, it's so amazing. Now look at this. We have this. Let me open in a new tab. When you look at this, this is a wonderful product manipulation. They just placed this skincare product by the beach side, and you can see these tiny little people here. This is something very creative, and when you scroll down, you would see a lot of these things. I think I'm going to share the link on. Okay, I'm going to share the link. So let's proceed. What can we now do? I think let's make an ad for Coca-Cola. What do you think? First of all, I'll go to where I download PNGs. I'll go to PNG egg and I'll get a Coca-Cola PNG, or you can just randomly search on Google. You can go to Coca-Cola can PNG. So if you just search that on Google, you'll see several options, and when you go to the image tab, you can see several. I think I like this long one because they are of different sizes. There are some that look short and some look longer. So I'll open this and I'll get this. So we are just going to make something very simple. It's very simple. Why are they not giving me what I saw? Okay, here it is. So you just click download. You try to download it, and you might have to solve this captcha, whatever they call it, that helps identify if you are a robot or not. I think we might also need this. Yes, let's get it anyways. We might need it, we might not. It's important that we just get all the resources we need. Oh, and this is the logo. Let's get the logo as well. So we're starting with, what's the first thing we wanted to download? This one. So you click alphabet in order, and then DROS, and that should start the download. So we'll do the same for the other ones. So that has downloaded. Let's get the logo. So the logo has downloaded. Then this is the bottle type. So what else are we gonna need? We might need some ice cubes, probably. So let's search for ice cubes, just in case. So one thing I like doing is I like getting all the resources I'll need. I think I prefer this one. Let me take a look at it. Okay, it looks pretty rough. I don't really like the look of. Let me check free pick for some ice cubes, because I think free pick would give me some good looking ice cubes. Okay, so I guess these are some nice looking ice cubes that, although I guess these are obviously going to be Illustrator files. So let me turn on the PSD filter to see if we can actually get some PSD looking ice cubes. And when you take a look at this, you'd obviously see some nice looking designs, but most of these things are premium, so I'll turn on the free license so that it gives us the free version. I'm not really going with most of these ice cubes. I like the ice cubes on this particular design, so I'm actually going to download this design and extract the ice cubes from here. So that is supposed to be downloading. Share the link. So let's proceed. What can we now do? I think let's make like this long one, because they are of different sizes. There are some that look short and some look longer. So I'll open this and I'll get this. So we are just going to make something very simple. Alright, so I'm still waiting for this guy to finish downloading. So while waiting for that, I'll just, okay, I was working on this. I'm gonna close this and then I'll leave this. I need to get back to that later, and then I'll create a new document. But now I don't want this to be like the regular Coca-Cola stuff that we all know, the regular Coca-Cola ad that we are used to seeing. What can we add to this to make it much more interesting? Let's see if we can find a family photo or a superhero or something. I would go back to my PNG egg. I'm thinking that Iron Man would fit into this because Iron Man has that kind of color. So I'll try getting an image of Iron Man. Exactly what I was thinking. Which one am I going to take? I think I like this one. I'm going to download this. and then this one or this one. I think this one should work. And Hulkbuster. I think I would rather use Hulkbuster though. K, Q, X, and V. And same with this other one. So first things first, let's add our Coca-Cola whatever we just downloaded. So we have this. Now when you take a look at this thing, it's very important to understand color hue, because most of these things, they don't have the same color hue. Some of the reds are darker than the others, while some are lighter than the others, and vice versa. So what we are going to do is, in the process of our design, we would have to balance all these colors. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll have to set the tone of my background first. So I'll click this layer and then I'll come to solid color. And then now with my solid color panel open, I'll pick a color from this object. And now I picked the red from here, but I would want this red to be darker, so I'll just make it a bit darker because I want to do some compositing right here. Now instead of just doing the regular design that we are used to having, I'll just create something out of the box. Yes, because it's important that you stay creative. As you saw earlier, I went doing some research and got some ideas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this a little bit. I'm going to rotate it a little and scale it down. So for those using smartphones, let me just make that quick. For those using smartphones, or your laptop does not have Photoshop, maybe it's a low-end PC, you can go to Photopea. I showed us that yesterday. You can go to Photopea, and Photopea is going to help you do Photoshop style designs. It has Photoshop's interface, so you can just come here and create a new project and input your project size and click create, and you can do every single thing I'm doing. Let me show you an example. If you import it here, it's going to take some time to load. See, now it appeared below the background, so you can just do it. So you can scale this down, rotate. If you're using this, some shortcuts you might have some issues with some shortcuts, because I tried using Ctrl T and it was opening a new tab in my browser, so I had to turn on transform control. So you can turn this on and turn this off from time to time so that you can easily transform things if you're using Photopea. It works similar to Photoshop. If I come down here, I can see color fill. I can select the color I want to use, just like I did in Photoshop. So it has very similar interface. So it's something you can do with your phone, but just ensure that your browser is on desktop mode if you're doing this with your phone. So let's jump back into Photoshop. So now, having this in Photoshop, if you scroll in, you will see that this has some white edges. There are some PNGs you might want to work on, and it has these white edges. There are two ways to fix that. If you go to filter and go to order, if you go to minimum, you'd be able to reduce this a little, but minimum is going to affect it in a certain way. You might have to be careful when using minimum. So, but the other way that I'd prefer to use is using the smudge brush tool. So once your layer is active, you can make a selection. You can right click on the thumbnail and go to select pixels, and then create a mask. You click add layer mask. You can come here, here to this blur tool and select smudge. You can use the bracket keys to increase the brush size. So when you zoom in, you might have to reduce the brush size again. When you zoom in order to clear out these white edges, you just ensure that your mask is selected, because we are making the changes on the mask. So with the smudge tool, you can just push this back in just a little, slightly. Don't overdo this, don't apply too much pressure. You can just take your time to like push this inwards. So when you do that, you can now see that you are having the kind of results you expected. For large scale results, you can increase your brush size and do this so that it covers a larger area. So try to do this as accurately as possible so that you don't alter the look of your can, so your can does not start looking bent. Now to make the background dynamic, let's add some simple lighting to the background. Let's add some simple lighting. So you can select a very bright red, or maybe select the background color and take the brightness up to 100. Let's take the brightness to 100, and then this layer is below our can layer, so you can just click here several times to create some form of highlights. Or if that's too much, you can place it at the center. It depends on where you want to effect the change. So when you look at this, you can now see that this is making it look more interesting, because if I turn this off, you can see it looks like this. If I turn this on, it looks like this. So let's increase the size of the can a little. So my smart guides are showing me that my can is centralized, so I'll commit that transformation. Let's bring in our Iron Man character. Let's try Hulkbuster. Now this was what I was talking about, having these different hues of red and all of that. We'll balance all these colors later on. Let's bring in this other one. Let's see which one gives us the best result, because I'm not going to use both characters at the same time. I just need one. I somehow feel that the Hulkbuster goes well with this, so I might have to balance this. Control T to transform, and then scale this up. So I think the colors of this Coca-Cola is a bit off, I mean for the can. someone has messed up with the colors. So what you can do is you can go to image and go to adjustments. You can now go to color balance so that we balance the colors. You can add some more reds to it so that it looks like the colors we have in our background. So this was, let me zoom in so that you see clearly. This was before and this is after. The color changes are not so much, so you might not notice them. So it's important to train your eyes so that you can notice slight changes in color. It will help you when you are doing photo manipulation. It's very important because slight color changes. And when you look at this guy here, his colors are different from what we planned to have. So what we can do is go to image size, the same thing, color balance. We might have to reduce or enhance the yellows a bit, just a little bit, and then enhancing the reds as well is making it pop. So I'll show you a before and after. So this was before and this is after. So it just made the colors come out very well. Now another thing we can do is to create a platform for these guys to stand on. There's an idea that is coming to my mind which I want to execute. So just as we created let me hit Ctrl 0 to have it back in full frame. Just as we created some shapes from what we did yesterday, we can do the same thing here by just observing the principle of shadows and highlights, which is very important. So I'm going to use a circle. So you come here and select the ellipse tool. So with the ellipse tool selected, you can just draw something, a platform, and then position it properly. You can change the colors later, but I think this color is just perfect for what I want to do. So I think this color is perfect. This is just perfect for what I want to achieve. So now let's make this look dynamic. We might have to use the rectangle tool. So you select the rectangle tool on a new layer, because if you try drawing this on this layer, it's going to add to this shape. So they're all going to be in one layer. So you can draw something like this. And then double click to select. It's already the same color. So but if it's not, ensure you select that same color. And then we can come down here and reduce the brightness to, let's say 30, or let's say 10. No, 10 is too dark. Let's say 40. No, 40 is making it look too close to the background. 20. I think 20 is perfect. Excuse me. One thing you have to practice doing is testing out different variables, because there is no stereotyped pattern of achieving something. If you try something and it doesn't work, maybe you try a certain parameter, it doesn't work, you impute another one. So let's say you're dealing with opacity and 70% opacity doesn't give you what you want. You can go for 60%, you can go for 40%, and that's how it works. So I have this, and I am just going to bring this down under this shape. Let me go back to the move tool. So now looking at this already, it's giving us an idea of what we are supposed to create. Honestly, I'll tell you, I never planned to do this kind of design. With the way it's going and with the ideas that I'm beginning to get, I did not plan for this particular design. In fact, I had something else in mind. But let's proceed. So now, let's make this thing look realistic, so we might need to add some highlights and shadows. I think adding just highlights might be fine, but let's see what it looks like. So you can just select, you can use any of your favorite selection tools, make a selection, and then with the paint bucket tool, ensure your foreground color is set to white. You can fill up, let's create that in a new layer, ensure it's on a new layer, so you can fill that with white, and then ensure it's clipped to the original layer, to this layer. So you right click and create clipping mask, or you can use the shortcut, you hold Alt and click in between both layers, and it's going to create the clipping mask for you. The next thing you can do is blur it. You go to filter, you go to blur, you go to Gaussian blur. You can increase the blur radius depending on how you want it to look like. So if you want it around here, you can just click OK. Now this is obviously too white, so we can reduce the opacity to about, let's say 50%. No, 50 is too much. 24 seems okay. 24 seems cool. Let's make it 18. So you can still expand this a little. You can expand this a little. You just hold Alt, then hold Alt on your keyboard and Shift, and then drag it. So it's going to give you that same effect. And I think we need to do the same for up here so that it doesn't look flat. Let's do some highlight patterns. So you can select your, come to the lasso tool, right click and use the polygonal lasso tool. Let's turn off these ones for now, and then you can create these patterns, just two of it on another layer though, and then you, with your paint bucket tool, ensure your foreground color is white. You can fill with white, and Ctrl D to deselect. Another thing you can do is ensure that it is clipped, it's clipping mask. So right click and always create clipping mask. Then let's go to filter and then blur, and then Gaussian blur. So I think the blur radius is way too much, so I think that is okay. You can reduce the opacity to about 20 or 35 is okay. So all you need to do is just duplicate this, Ctrl J, Ctrl T, and drag it to this other side. Ensure it's still clicked, right click and create clipping mask. So it makes it look a bit dynamic so that it doesn't look too static. So if you turn this on, now for it to even look more realistic, we need to create some shadows. Now I haven't saved this. Let me save it because sometimes Photoshop can come up with all these crash reports and all of that, and you don't want to spend all your time doing some designs and it doesn't give you what you want. So what I'm going to do is press Ctrl S, and then I'm going to save it as Creative Masterclass. I'm going to name this as CocaCola. So it helps us understand what we're doing. Now we just need to create a very simple shadow for these objects. Here's what we can do. We just need the ellipse tool. Later on, I will show you how to create complex shadows. In fact, let's do that quickly before we proceed. Let's duplicate this Hulkbuster. Let's duplicate it and turn off every other thing except this guy. So we have this. Let's say we want to create a very complex shadow that looks very realistic. You can, let me make this a little bigger. You can increase the height of this thing. Now, right click and select pixels. The shortcut for that is just to hold Control on your keyboard and click the thumbnail. It's going to select the outline of your object or whatever you're trying to make use of. So you can go to any of your favorite selection tools, right click and go to make work path. So this is going to create a path around what you selected, so it looks like you're trying to draw a shape. And then you can go to and then you can still right click. Let me see if that works. No, go back to your pen tool and click on shape. Double click the thumbnail and make it black, so it gives you this black shape. You can duplicate this and then rasterize it, so it's no longer, now because it's having these outlines, it's in a vector format. So let's make this a raster image. So you can just right click and rasterize layer, so it becomes an ordinary layer. So we'll take this behind this our hawk poster. Now what I want to show you is how to use the perspective warp. Ensure that when you're working on things like this, you save from time to time, because especially if you're using low-end PCs, because of the processing power, it might crash your Photoshop sometimes. So now look at this, our colored layer, this black layer is still active, but it's behind this guy. So with this selected, you go to edit and go to perspective warp. So it will show you the steps on how to do it. So first things first, you make a selection around what you want to warp, and then you come here and click on warp. So remember, this is the layer we are working with. So once you're done with that, you can now adjust this to the perspective you want it to be. So this requires that you have a good understanding of how perspective works. Now observe the angle at which I am taking the shadows. It's very important that for you to make things realistic, you understand highlights, shadows, and light behaviors. Now when you look at this image here, the light is mostly coming from this side. It's mostly coming from this angle. So you can draw your shadow to follow the angle of light. So you can make it even flatter and maybe narrower. To why it's like this is because I'm trying to create the illusion of, oh, there is a perspective, there is distance. So once you're done with that, you can apply the perspective warp and then adjust the shadow to fit what you were trying to create. So now this is a bit very harsh. The shadows are very hard. So for some reasons, I like duplicating my layers a lot, so that just in case I change my mind, I would come back to the previous version. So I will duplicate this, Ctrl J, and save a copy, and then go to filter rather, and then go to blur, go to Gaussian blur. Now this is going to make the overall shadow a bit blurry, so we can use a different kind of blur. You can go to filter and go to blur gallery and choose field blur. Alright, it's going to load up the blur window. See, it's like I said earlier, there are some things you might try to do and because of processing it's going to crash your Photoshop. So I'll just have to open my Photoshop again. So this time I'll try it again. Let's see how far we can go with that. Holy crap. You see, that's why it's important to save. If I didn't save, you'd see that we might be starting this over again. Now see, this was where I saved last, so I might have to repeat that process again. So since I explained it earlier, I'll just rush through it. But if you need me to explain again, I might just do that right away. So you go to File, go to Perspective, no, it's Edit rather. Go to Edit, Perspective Warp, and you draw your warp thingy. That's right. So once you're done with that, you go to Warp, and then you can now start tilting the shadow to the angle you wanted it to be. So ensure it looks realistic. Don't try to, you can take your time to do things like this, because when I'm creating things like this, I try my best to ensure that it looks as real as possible. So you can apply and then adjust it to fit the look of what you're doing. So now, can't you see how amazing this looks? But the shadow edges are way too hard, and naturally shadows are not really this hard looking. Even if you're using a very hard light, it doesn't look this hard. So you go to filter, you can go to blur. I don't want us to use field blur. If you're going to use field blur, you can select certain areas you might want to blur, because naturally when shadows are disappearing into the distance, the part closest to the subject is quite sharper than the part that is quite far away. So I wanted to recreate that, but it might cost us some processing power. And by the way, my Photoshop crashed, so let's not make that mistake again. So I'll just use something about 7. 7 is okay, at least for this tutorial. So I'm going to create a mask and fade off some of these parts. So you just create a mask. You can reduce the opacity of this shadow if you like, because I mean, shadows are not really this heavy. You can use an opacity of 60 or 50. Let's go with 50. I think 50 works best. An opacity of 50. Ensure you add a layer mask. Let's save. Control S. Add a layer mask. Then you can select the brush tool, not the mixer brush tool. So you right click and go to brush, and then paint on some areas, especially this edge, to like fade it out a little bit. I think that's way too much. So without the mask, with the mask, so this gives us a realistic look. So this was just a little diversion to explain shadows and how they work and how to create shadows. So this was just something by the way, because what we are actually dealing with. I'm just going to group this, Control G. After selecting all the layers, I'll turn on what we were working with. No, not this. So I'll reactivate what we were working with. So this is what we were working with. Now, why I diverted to talk about shadows was because we were going to create some shadows here. So we are not going to do that complex type of shadow, because I mean it's obviously a waste of time in this context or in this case. So I'll just use a simple ellipse tool, I mean circle. You right click and go to the ellipse tool, and you can just draw something simple, and ensure that the foreground color, or the color rather, is black. Ensure it's black, and then you can take it behind your objects, adjust the edges. So we are just going to do something simple like blurring that. You go to filter, go to blur, Gaussian blur. So you get this dialog box pop up to ask if okay, should the shape layer be rasterized or converted to a smart object. So you can just rasterize it and then increase the blur radius depending on how much blurriness you want. And then if I take it too high, I lose the shadows. So I think something around here, around 26 is okay. So you can just reduce the opacity. Just it shouldn't look too thick. So you can just extend this a little bit so that we can have more room for the shadow. So something around the opacity, keeping the opacity at 80 I think is best. So if you hit Ctrl 0 on your keyboard, it's going to take your whatever back to full screen. So this is what we're working with. Now, why I diverted. So what can we add to this? We got some ice cubes. I hope our ice cubes downloaded. Our ice cubes, yes, it did. Our ice cubes downloaded. So I'm just going to open this PSD file. So I downloaded a design template from FreePic, and I love the ice cubes they used here. So I'm going to use the same ice cubes. So this is a design template. Like I was telling some guys yesterday, you can create templates like this and upload them on FreePic, and FreePic pays you. That's how it works. I think I love the layout of their ice cubes, so I'm just going to copy the ice cubes folder and paste it here. Ooh, I mean, this is becoming very interesting than I thought. So we might need to rearrange our ice cubes. So this is the ice cubes folder or the ice cubes group. So Ctrl T to like readjust them. So I might need to ungroup these ones because I'll need to rearrange the ice cubes. So I'll right click and go to ungroup layers so that I would have the liberty to rearrange the ice cubes the way I like it. So I can close whatever document I don't need. Ensure that you save, because it's very important. Why I got used to the habit of saving was because there was a PC I used one time and the battery wasn't good. So it works only when there is power. I mean when there is light. So once there is power outage or the light is gone, the laptop goes off, and if you have not saved, you might have to start your designs all over again. And aside that, if you're using devices that might crash, you might need to save from time to time. Aside that, saving your files as you work is a very healthy practice. So I took this ice cube behind the Hulk Buster. So we just make it dynamic. That's another ice cube. This is one ice cube here. So this can be here. As I'm doing this, it's giving me a whole lot of ideas. It's giving me so many ideas that I need to execute. So where is this one? Okay, that's that one. That's that one. I think we're done with all the ice cubes. Okay, this is another ice cube. So I'll take this behind, so it just forms. No, I don't want this to look like it's on Hulkbuster's hands. So I need to duplicate this, Control J, Control T, so that I can scale it down. So I mean, just to recreate something like this. Alright, so I'll save. Now looking at this, it's something very, very creative. What text can we add to this? There is something I saw, a caption I saw from one Coca-Cola post last time. Now, for the purpose of this tutorial, it's important to note that when you're dealing with brand identity designs, or designs that have to stick with the brand identity, you'll see that in this Hulkbuster there is some gold and some yellow. So, but in Coca-Cola's branding, you'd never see yellows. So it's important that if we're going to take this much further into more detail, I would have to desaturate all of this. Let's see if we can quickly do that. So I would select this, my Hulkbuster, go to image, go to adjustments, and go to hue and saturation. Then from this master, I'm going to select yellows. Let's see if we can desaturate all the yellows. So desaturating all the yellows and making them brighter. It didn't do so much work, but at least it's better. Is there any color close to yellow? Let's see if we can do anything about greens. I think this is just the best we can do. So this was, I'll show you before. So I'll show you the before and the after. So this is not color balance. This is before and this is after. So it just makes the branding look unique. Do you understand? This is something very important. So let's add a simple body of text. You can select your text tool. You can add something like taste the feeling. Taste the feeling. Taste the feeling. You can now adjust it. Now this text isn't getting so much of an attention, so we might have to move the text to one side, rather the object in our design to one side, so that we can give some breathing space to our our text rather. So I'll select all my layers except the background. Just nudge it with the arrow keys towards the right. So after doing this, you can now see that it gives us, it creates this sense of balance. Yeah? You can now see that there is now some breathing room for our text. So it's important that you understand the principle of balance. There is the principle of balance in graphic design. So ensure that when you're creating designs, your designs are looking really balanced. It's not like some things are choked up and they are trying to look for breathing space. So now looking at this, if I'm going to put my text somewhere, no, let me deactivate the selection. Yeah, this is the text. If I'm going to put my text somewhere around here, it doesn't look choked up. Do you understand? I think I still need to move it a little bit. it doesn't look choked up. So you can now see. But looking at the design, this text, taste the feeling, doesn't really match with the concept of the image, because come on, you're seeing Hogwarts. What caption can we use? Okay, let's just do something. Let me actually spell Hulkbuster. Let's say we have Hulkbuster, and then I love using long fonts, like I said before, so I'm going to use the 6 caps font. It's a very long font. A very long font. So positioning this like this. Now the idea of having this, it's not really so that someone can actually read it. Somebody may not be able to read what is there, but it's just for what they call the aesthetics, just to like make the design look beautiful. Because come on, me putting it behind here, someone that doesn't know what is there may not be able to tell what is spelled there. So I can just reduce the opacity to like 5. No, I think having it at full power is perfect. You can readjust this depending on what you are trying to achieve. Okay. So, but I think having it like this is just cool. Maybe you can have it at the top so that someone can easily guess what it is. And ensure that when you're placing elements, ensure that they are centralized. So now when you have this there, you can now have your taste the feeling down here. You can scale it down. Now look at the alignment, and when you're doing things like this, ensure that you use smart guides. Ensure you use smart guides. It's going to help you a lot. So I think I still need to reduce this. So I just want to do something I think is creative. So for the purpose of designs, ensure that it's as simple as possible. So I'm just making these designs look a bit complex so that I can explain several things to you at once, instead of trying to do them in different tutorials, so that I can explain them to you at once. So I was thinking, what if we split this Hulkbuster, like create a sliced text effect. Let me select this. Now there are 2 ways to do this. You can do it in such a way that the text is editable, and you can do it in such a way that the text isn't editable at all. Which one should we do? Should we make this editable? If we are to make this editable, I would convert this to a smart object first. So since it's now a smart object, I'm going to make a selection. Let me turn off my Coca-Cola. So I'm going to make a selection. You can use the polygonal lasso tool, right click, select. You can click here, hold shift, so that it gives you a straight selection. So I'll just draw a diagonal line, and then the same here, and then turn on layer mask. So it gives me this sliced effect. And then once I duplicate that, all I need to do is to invert the layer mask. So I'll just come here and go to Control I. It inverts the layer mask. So if I turn off the first one, so it doesn't look like there is a huge difference, except that you can see a thin line in between. So let's just nudge this a little bit to create a distortion. So you can just nudge this with your arrow key, so it creates this distortion. Now you can add a simple light effect in the middle. Yes, so I have that in my PNG folder. So I'll go to pictures, PNG. Let's have PNG. I have my light PNG. So you can use this. Then readjust it, rotate it, and then place it at the center. So to give it this illusion of. So now we don't want this thing to be in blue color. This came in as a smart object, so ensure you rasterize it because we don't want to be dealing with too much smart objects. Let's use a screen blend mode and then go to image adjustments, then hue and saturation. Next thing you can do is move the hue slider so that it gives us something. And since we're not dealing with yellows, I don't want us to do anything with yellows. Let's just stick with red. Let's see if the other end gives us a better looking red. I think this is better. You can increase the lightness and then okay. Let's turn on our Coca-Cola again, and then right here we can create a simple highlight. I am making this design a bit complicated so that I can explain several things to you at once, but naturally or normally, according to the principles of design, most of what I'm doing here is unnecessary, and if it doesn't contribute to the purpose of the design, it's an absolute waste of time. Yes, that's right. So let's add a new layer. Change the blend mode to screen. Select the brush tool. Click the foreground color and let's pick something from this, our highlight. And then if you just tap once, that's something to give us an illusion of light. So I'm going to make this bigger and do something like this. I think this is way too much. Now this is adding some light to what we've created. Some people might love to do without it, but for my style, I love having things like this in my scene. If you want to go into more detail, I might have to come and start creating highlights on the edges. Let me show you an example. You create a new layer, right click and clip it to the Coca-Cola, and then with the brush tool, ensure that it's a little bit hard, not too hard, and let's you work with 15 with the same color. Ensure that it's screen blend mode. If you use linear dodge will make it a lot more brighter. So this helps us create some highlights. So let's see if the same would work here. So the importance of this is that it gives off the impression that, oh, this thing is ice cold. You get, can you see how amazing this is looking? Wow. So this was without and this is with. So this is, as I said, for you to make excellent designs, especially if you're going to go deeper into photo manipulation, you need to understand lighting, darkness, highlights, and shadows. So when we talk about light is like extreme brightness, then dark is like extreme darkness, then shadows is like subtle dark, while highlights are like subtle brightness. Alright, so I think we have come to the end. We are rounding up, so I want us to create a sample text box. Let's say this is going to be in a comic poster. Let's assume we're creating this for a comic poster, not actually an ad. We might have to write a simple body of text. So to do that, let's activate our rulers. So if you don't have your rulers activated, you can just press Ctrl arrow on your keyboard and it's going to activate them. So you can just draw the rulers down to where you want to add the body of text. Another thing here is to help for the purpose of alignment. So I want the text to end here and end here. So in this little space, would add a sample text. So create a new layer, and then with let me move this line so it doesn't get too close. With the pen tool, let's create a path. You can start from here and then hold shift to draw a straight path, and then just randomly trace the edge of this object or whatever object you have there. So if I really wanted to take it a bit further, just to break my line a little so that I can follow the path, you can just come here, then hold shift to give a straight line, and then you complete the path. So if I turn off the rulers by pressing CocaCola, you can see the path we just created. So I'll just select the text tool, like what I was explaining yesterday about the circular part, that when we are trying to write a text in a circular part, you can see that what we did, I explained that if you're typing a text on a path, it has different effects when you're typing on the line of the path and inside the path. So it's going to have two different effects. So but inside the path, it's going to create it as, it's going to use the path as a boundary for whatever you're trying to create. But keeping it on the line, it's going to write text around, so the text is actually going to form the path. So you should take note of that. So I'm going to click inside here. I'm going to reduce my font size to, let's say, this. Then your paragraph style, ensure that it's justified. And then I need more text to fill up this place. I'll just go to type and go to paste lorem ipsum. So I'm just using a dummy text to fill up this space. Hope you understand. So now when we look at the edge of this our design, you see that this edge, I feel it's not looking very balanced, so we might have to balance it a little bit. So let's just move I feel this text and everything looks balanced. The text looks balanced. So we might have to group all the text together. So let's group this text, the filling, and our Hulkbuster effect. Now remember I said the Hulkbuster is editable. So if I open this folder, this smart object, you can see it. It's here. Let me make it visible by using black. It's here. If you change the text, so let's say I change it to, I don't know, let me use Madagascar. That's what's coming to my mind. So if I press Ctrl S, it's going to update the smart object even with the colors. So it's going to affect both smart objects. So I'm going to undo that. So that's why it's editable. Alright, so moving on. for my design to look balanced, because this space here looks way too much, I'm going to select everything except the background. So from this layer, click it, go to the last one, hold shift and click it, and then you can use your arrow keys to like nudge it to the side. Now you can see that the light effects I created is now beginning to have some things I don't understand, so we might have to fix that for the lighting. So what we can do is, where is the light layer? This is it, I guess. So Control T, just extend it a little bit. Now our text has gone out of alignment. Our hub poster is no longer centralized. So let's group it. Control G, then you press Control A, and then once you've done that, you will see this, they call them matching ants around the edges of the design, and then you click up here to centralize them. So this becomes centralized. You can press Control D to deselect. So to align this our text, because alignment is a very important principle in design, this our text has gone out of alignment. Why? Because we altered the position of the design. So what are we going to do about it? If you remember, we created this with a path. So what we can do is to adjust the path. So you come to the direct selection tool, you can make a selection, you can click and drag to make the selection, then use your arrow keys to like move that end inwards so it becomes aligned to your text. So if you like, you change how the design looks. It doesn't really affect whatever you're making there. So I low-key still feel that this thing isn't centralized, so I'm going to ignore my text, and then I'm going to move only the images, because the texts are centralized now. So I'm going to move the images to like make it look solid, centralized and balanced, and I think I am now satisfied with this. But my lighting is now causing some issues, so you just select it, Control T, you extend it a little, and you click OK, and ensure that if you have any questions, you let me know in the comment section. Alright, okay, so moving on, you can see that our text is now out of place. So let's just adjust it back the way it was. So like I said earlier, alignment is very important, so we might have to realign this. So select the direct selection tool, click and drag on this edge, and then you can use your arrow keys on your keyboard to nudge it back inwards so that it looks aligned. So if you zoom in, you can see that this anchor point, they call them anchor points, you can right click and delete anchor points, so you don't really have to bother yourself with that. And I think if I reduce the text size to like 6, I think this looks much better. So like I said earlier, I am only making this design look complicated because I am trying to explain a lot of things. Now, if you're creating designs for posters and ads, it's important that your designs are simple and minimal. So our lens flare is out of place. Our lens flare is out of place. Let's realign it. So all of these things I created, the only things I downloaded here was this Hulkbuster and the Coca-Cola can and these ice cubes. So everything down to this thing, let me turn everything off so that you can see how it was created. So this was the plain background. So this is more like a recap of what I did. This is the plain background, and then I added a red color fill layer. why I'm explaining this thing like this is so that irrespective of the design software you're actually making use of, you can recreate things like this. So I'm just giving you an idea of how creative you can be, because if I was using Pixel Lab, I can recreate exactly these things with Pixel Lab 100%. So I added another lighter red layer to like create a gradient. You can create these two layers as one if you're using a gradient fill. I would explain that in another tutorial. So this is the text. I had to split this text to create this split text effect, and I added this. But this was, I added this text after I was done with adding my Coca-Cola and then ice cubes and all. This is the shadow, and where's my Hulkbuster, and this is our lens flare. So this is the Hulkbuster. So this text was added after. No, I don't have any business with that. This text was added after I added my Hulkbuster. And if you look in, we did so many adjustments. So I guess if you've missed it, you can go back in time, I mean in the video, and rewatch those parts. It explains everything. So I'm going to turn on everything I turned on, so you can now see how amazing this looks. So I'm going to share the resources of everything I did, and then you can watch the video and take a look at what was done. I don't know, I'm having a crazy idea which is going to still complicate the design, which is not a good practice, but I mean, there is no rule against it. At least I understand the rules, and I am just trying to be crazy. It really doesn't make sense. It's not necessary. I was just trying to see what this would look like, but it's obviously not necessary. So I want to make this core on his chest brighter, so I'll just create a new layer, and then with the brush tool, foreground color, select this pure white. Ensure that the layer is in screen mode, because screen mode helps for bright lights and all of that. So I'll just reduce the hardness to 0, and then just click on the chest. It's going to make it look bright. Click on the chest again. It's going to make it look bright. Alright, so this was before and this is after. So I love experimenting with a lot of lighting, and yeah. So I was supposed to add something. The Coca-Cola logo, it should just be at the top. The Coca-Cola logo should just be at the top. So I just want to make it Coca-Cola X Hulkbuster. So just a random idea. So but if you're dealing with an actual client, this is red, let's make it white by using a color overlay effect. So you go to effects and go to color overlay. You can now choose white. So I just want to add a simple text right here. Just add X, Control T, scale it up. So I want to use one crazy font for this X. Now also take note, I'm also trying to ensure that everything I do is centralized. There was one text I saw, I don't know if I can still find one font rather. Oh, that was one brush. Something like this, brush strike. Which one looks better? I think this DHF, no, brush strike looks better. On another hand, on a second thought, is it necessary if I use extra light? No, I think that looks better. Let me use basic. No, brush. I think I might just have to rotate this counterclockwise 90 degrees, so I think this looks better. Alright, so this is how much we've done, and I think this is truly amazing from what I can see. So I guess I've been doing this for about an hour 30 minutes thereabouts, and some designs can take you up to 4 hours to create. So but the main thing is to ensure that you put your time and energy to creating amazing masterpieces. And like I said, just for the purpose of this masterclass, I am making the designs look a bit complicated so that I can explain a lot of concepts at once. So but later on we'll get to stages where I would actually make the designs look minimal so that you get a proper understanding of what design principles are. So if you have any question, let me know in the comments and I would respond to you on the group chat. Thank you so much for participating in today's masterclass. I hope you learned something. Yes. Thank you and God bless you.